sir. Y'all know what day it is. It is Teague's Take time. And, man, we got another good one lined up for you guys. I'm going to be joined by, of course, the analytical one, JT, in a little bit. We got a very special guest with us tonight, Dwight Hollier, who I actually had the opportunity to play with when I was with the Miami Dolphins. So I'm grateful for the opportunity for him to come in and, talk about what he's up to now. After the break, make sure you guys stay with us because we're going to talk about the USFL. Are they really coming back? Good Lord. And let's talk about IMG and this high school portal and were they the reasons that this happened. But before we get to all of this, let's go ahead and get to my runouts. So it's kind of been hitting me. I've had the opportunity to do some different things over this past week. And when you start looking at stress, anxiety, the wellness of athletes, I wonder sometimes what those driving factors are because I believe, and I don't know for sure, and that's why I'm really interested in talking to Dwight about this, is playing football, is it a stressor or something that hinders your wellness, or is it something that actually helps you because of exercise and running and keeping your mind in shape and all that kind of stuff? Because I've kind of been torn with it personally. I feel like that for a part of my career, it was a tremendous stressor. Might have led to some depression or whatnot. If I wasn't the one who had the same team all of my career. I've been traded. I've been cut. I've had to try to keep a starting position, and all of those things led to a lot of different anxieties. I felt like anyway, not necessarily diagnosed, but I just know there were stressful times in my life, and I wonder what that actually did to my wellness outside of, just getting hit and the physical pounding that you take with your body. So I'm a little bit torn when you look at the science, I guess, and they say, well, hey, it's better for you to be doing the exercise, and football should be able to help you because of the stress relievers that you could have. Totally opposite of what I just said a minute ago. Did hitting actually help with those or not? So this is, it's interesting to me. And when we got a gentleman like we have tonight to join this conversation, I want to dive into it because he's heard me talk to some other people about our brains, the psychology of it, and things of that nature. So I'm going to bring in JT now and Dwight Hollier in. Dwight is, like I said, he was a teammate of mine with the Dolphins. He played with the Dolphins from 92 to 99, had a year with the Colts. He is now the senior associate AD for student and health, with some other stuff on there at the University of North Carolina, those Tar Heels, where he played college ball at as well. No, he did not play on the basketball team. He was a football player, and he had a tremendous career. He is ranked very high with all-time linebacker play for the team. So, Dwight, welcome to the show, man. Thank you for coming on board with us.
Big appreciate you inviting me, man. I'm excited about the opportunity to talk. It's always good to talk about wellness. It's always good to be with a brother, somebody that you sweated with out there in that field. And I'm excited about the opportunity to meet with you, man. And I love the stuff that you're doing. I love the tea take and all that you're doing. I'm really happy to be here.
I appreciate it, man. And as you guys saw, for those of you who have watching it on YouTube and Facebook, make sure you look him up on Twitter at DFIN50. That's DFIN50. He's also on Instagram. What is it, Dwight? Just Dwight Hollier. Yeah. So make sure you guys give him a follow and chime in if you have some questions and things of those nature as well. But where I'm all confused, man. I kind of need your help and guidance. I know you saw when I had Denise, the lady on from Tulane Medical stuff, And so that it really keeps me as I'm getting older. I'm 50 years old now, and I'm trying to, get more stressed now than probably before. I don't know if I'm just old and grumpy or what it is, but what do you think about what I said? Did football, while you're actually playing, is that a good for your wellness or not so much?
I think it's both. I think it's good when you are able to engage in any kind of activity. Is healthy for you. It's the other stuff that goes along with it. You talk about being cut. You talk about the pressures of playing. You didn't have those pressures when you were at Alabama. You didn't have, well, you had pressures to play and to stay as a starter, but you didn't have those pressures in high school. You didn't have those pressures in middle school, and the opportunity to play was therapeutic for you. I would assume, I
Mm-hmm.
would bet. I mean, it was. I'll just talk about me. It was therapeutic for me. The opportunity to smash into folks. I lived for it. I love that, and it created opportunities for me. So it was a stress reliever. It was something that really motivated me as a person to 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 get better, to do things, to engage in it, and in that way, it did reduce stress and anxiety for me. But as we become more intertwined with the sport, more intertwined with whatever that activity is, and we identify with that thing. We identify as I'm Dwight Hollier, the football player, and then when I'm not Dwight Hollier, the football player, or I'm Dwight Hollier on my way out of the game, that's when the real anxiety and stress starts to set in, and that thing that motivated you, that excited you, that you were probably happiest doing, um, loses that same shine that it had before. But that's what I think happens to a lot of us is we become over identified with that thing, that aspect of our life, that athlete aspect of our life, and
Yes.
when we are no longer that, we're faced with, if I'm not this, then who am I?
So can that be a catalyst for those that I mean, you and I have both, I'd say, had successful careers, meaning we played longer than 3 years. Where there's some people that come in and they're not there; they're for camp or they only make this stuff. Do you think that really weighs into to the mindset of the guys or the things you're talking about? Could this be a catalyst, I guess, that hey, if you've had these dreams and aspirations and maybe you get into the camp and then it just really doesn't pan out, you're saying it just kind of sped up, or does that become another issue for us if you're, on the other side where you're continually trying to make a team over a 2 or 3 year period?
Yeah, I think when you're in almost anything, man, when you're emotionally tied to it and it doesn't work out, it hurts you, or you feel hurt in some way, and so um, it can start all kinds of things. So you know, I say for those of us that play football, and even those that play a long time, and both of us were fortunate to play as long as we did. You know, it's it's tough out there when that thing that you did for so long you are no longer able to do,
Hmm.
uh, and 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 then you're out there trying to figure out who you are. Um, and that's where a lot of athletes find themselves, whether they play, um, you know, through high school, or they play through college, or they get an opportunity to play in the NFL. Um, at some point, it ends. The NCAA has their motto that most athletes will go pro in something other than sports. You know, the truth is all athletes are going to go pro in something other than sports, unless you're that super top tier guy that doesn't have to do anything. And even those guys end up with jobs on TV. So at some point it ends. And when it ends, what will you be prepared to do? And that's a conversation I have with athletes all the time. And a lot of us don't have an answer for that, or we're so caught up in who we were that it's hard for us to be something else.
So
Um,
I'm sorry. So tell us about what you do. Now, I read your title, at least part of it, but can you kind of explain to the listeners and the viewers actually what that is that you're doing at the university now?
yeah, so I'm the senior associate athletic director for student athlete health, well-being, and program outreach. And part of my job is working with our sports medicine department, all the aspects of wellness that touch the athlete. Our sports medicine department, strength and conditioning, nutrition, sports psychology, again, any of the parts of health and well-being that touch the athlete. I work very closely with those folks to make sure we got the right resources, to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to create great experiences for the student athlete related to wellness.
Mm.
Um, and I came to that job from the NFL, where I was vice president of wellness and clinical services. Um,
With the NFLPA, or actually on the NFL side, or is that
the,
connected
the
together?
league side.
Okay.
Yeah, in the player engagement department, and was fortunate to in this doing similar things, but for the NFL players, and making sure that we had the right resources, the right people, clinicians, and folks that work with the players in place. Um, and I came into that role from my previous job as a counselor. I got a master's degree while I was playing for Miami out of Nova Southeastern University, and went into the counseling world as soon as I signed my letter of severance. 2 months later, I was working as a counselor,
Oh, nice.
and, and did that for 12 years. And that's the lens through which I look at things. It's my experience as an athlete, but my experience in my transition from an athlete to a counselor, and how as an athlete transitioning to a counselor, I needed counseling. It was tough, man. And I was doing counseling. I was a intensive outpatient therapist for dual diagnosed adjudicated youth, meaning I was with some folks that didn't want to meet with me, and I spend my time connecting and building bridges and talking through challenges, and I go home and close myself off into a dark room because I was hurting because I wasn't a football player anymore.
Mm.
And that's a simplified explanation of it. The reality was that I had stuff that I hadn't dealt with, but I'm over here trying to help people deal with their stuff. Ultimately, ended up in counseling. The counselor got counseling, and it's that me dealing with those challenges, and working to address those issues around depression and transition and all the stuff that came along with that has shaded the lens that I look at things. That's why I do what I do now, because of my experiences as an athlete, my challenges as an athlete, the depression, the suicidal ideation, all of that stuff that I fought through, um, and now working to um, help guys navigate that space because it gets challenging.
Yes, yes. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you sharing that too, because a lot of people don't really know what it's like to retire, be forced out, even walk out and just try to figure out what you want to do. I mean, I know it was a struggle for me, and just trying to figure out what that was going to look like once I actually retired and got that severance, and saying, hey, you're going to go coach, or you're going to go be on TV? What are you going to do? And it does become challenging. So I do appreciate you sharing that. And I try to remind myself that the barbers, they need people to cut their hair too, So when you're saying that, you're doing a tremendous thing for those students at UNC, and while we were in the league, or while you were participating on the NFL side with that too. So I thank you for that, sir. And so I'd like to ask you now, though, tell us about your journey into the NFL. How did this all work? We all got different paths. Did you want to play? Did you grow up wanting to play? Sound like you going down this path of being a counselor. Like maybe you wanted to work at a high school or something. So how did it really happen, brother?
Hey man, it was a long journey. And you start talking about a barber, and I'm over here like, I hope he don't stay on that topic too long.
Well,
Uh, um, so I've been playing organized football since I was 7, and that was, my dad was a coach. We had a little league team over in Fort Monroe, the Fort Monroe Hornets, and um, you know, my first position in football was safety.
what?
Yeah. And they put me at safety because they knew I was less likely to get hurt way back there. And it was the furthest away from the game that I could be. So I was 7 playing on the 8, 9 year old team. And safety was the safest place for me. Um, but it was it opened my eyes. I grew up in the neighborhood where we were out in the street playing, telephone pole to telephone pole.
Yeah.
Just sports were everywhere. I had an older brother that played up into high school and until he quit. Um, and my dad played in high school and at the shipyard apprentice school. Um, and so sports was part of life. It was part of something we did. I, you know, I was never the fastest, biggest, strongest. I just liked to play, um, and didn't realize that I was good enough. And almost I didn't really think I was good enough. I was a shy, reserved kid. But you put a helmet on me and I'll go smash into something. And so I got to high school and I was playing okay, or I wasn't really paying attention. I was just having fun. And at one point, coach said, if you keep playing like this, you might have an opportunity. I was like, well, opportunity for what? No one in my family went to college, so I didn't know what that was about. Um, but I kept trying to play and started getting letters in the mail and was fortunate to go down to Carolina for a football camp the summer before my senior year, and must have had a good camp. Coach offered me a scholarship before I left campus,
Nice.
and so that put them in front. They were the first ones to offer me a scholarship, and I loved that place when I was down there. So I went back home, and my high school coach was mad at me because he thought that now that I had a scholarship, I was gonna, or the scholarship offer, I wasn't gonna play well, and and ended up doing everything I could. I was played pretty well, all state, conference defensive player of the year.
Mhm.
Got the chance to go to Carolina, and fast forward, got to Carolina, um, got an opportunity. We had a coaching change, got an opportunity to start as a freshman. Um,
Beautiful.
Ended up leaving Carolina as the leading tackler in school history, and got a chance to play in the NFL.
Boom.
Between that, I broke my foot right before my senior season, um, and ended up missing 4 games completely. Only played full time in 4 games
See?
that year, but
Stress.
still ended up leading the school in tackles and had a great college career, great experience, and I think that's one of the cool things about being able to come back to Carolina is it's a place where I had a lot of success, where I met my wife, where I just learned so much about life, about who I am too, and now I get a chance to have an impact on the young men that's coming through there now.
Man, that's awesome. That's a great story, and we haven't really talked about it. Just when you're outside the locker room, you're not really, playing with each other or talking as much about the game, but you were a great teammate for the 1 year that I was with the Dolphins. So that was part of my stressors coming down there, and then being out in a year after signing. I think I signed a 3-year contract or maybe 4. But after 1 year, Jimmy and I weren't really getting along too well, and so I departed out of that. And I don't talk about those days a whole lot. But
Jimmy didn't get along with many people. He got along with his Miami guys. That was about it.
Yeah. Hopefully you counseled him some while he was down there a little bit. You went into his office and gave him a little something. But
I tried to stay out of the whole space.
Yes,
I
sir.
survived 4 years with him, by doing my thing and not pushing any buttons over there.
Hey, bro, the rules are so different then too, with being cut and released and what your dollars look like and all that kind of stuff. That there's a lot more benefits, I guess, or I don't know what you would call it for the NFL players now. When it comes to money and contracts and things of that nature. So it was definitely a different game, not just from playing, but the way our contracts were structured. As well, free agency and all that as well. So, all right. So tell everybody again where they can find you at, sir. All your social media platforms.
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter at dfin50, and then on Instagram at Dwight Hollier, and post a lot of fun things. You follow me on Twitter, you're gonna get a whole bunch of Carolina stuff because I'm all in. And we have some great athletics, and I'm applauding them and celebrating them, and so buckle in for that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And he's a great follow. You guys should make sure you do that. If you get an opportunity to reach out to him, make sure you tell him old Coach Teague said what's up as well, so he'll know how you found him as well. But man, I just want to thank you. Hopefully we can do this again sometime and really dive into this stuff. I'd actually love to get you on another show, as it pertains, and maybe get some real roundtable discussion about health and wellness for post athletics for NFL guys and the things that we deal with and struggle through. And I don't know, it's just a whole different world that most people don't really consider. Not the common people, I guess we could say.
You know what I say, George, and I appreciate it. And I'm real quick. Just mental health is health. It's the same as other aspects of our wellness that we tend to pay more attention to, and I think we all need to pay more attention to our mental health. And COVID-19 has opened eyes up to the challenges that people face, and so just really encourage everyone to take care of themselves, and you don't have to go see a counselor, but if you need to talk to somebody, have folks that you can reach out to, and reach out to me.
I love it, brother. I love it. Well, there he is, Mr. Dwight Hollier. We do appreciate your time, and again, best of wishes to you. Tell the family, said hello, and sometime or another we'll catch up. Maybe we need to take a trip out there to the beach and just stroll on past and come see him or something. So, yeah. Well, thank you again. We're gonna head to a short break here to talk about profoundsites.com. Dwight, we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, guys.
profoundsites.com for your personal and commercial needs. Websites built, repaired, secured, maintained, and found. Brent Thomas and profoundsites.com provide e-commerce development, website development, online marketing, web, mobile, and e-commerce consulting. With over 10 years experience, Profound Sites is responsible for creating GeorgeTeague.com, where you can hear Teague's Take with George Teague every week. Brent Thomas and Profound Sites can take you through the entire pain-free process of building your new website. From initial discussion to planning, design, to coding and making your site live and discoverable on the internet. Contact Brent Thomas at profoundsites.com or email him at brent@profoundsites.com.
Hey, welcome back to the show. We do appreciate you guys for hanging around a little bit longer for us. We got a couple more things to talk about this evening. thanks again for making sure or downloading, giving us those likes, subscribing. It's been tremendous just to see how many people are actually tuning in and downloading these things. Make sure you check out georgeteague.com or teaguestake.com for memorabilia and just to see what we have going on. You can contact us through there. If you ever have any questions, suggestions, comments, just hit that contact us button, and that will get to us, and we'll make sure we reply to you guys there as well. But now we need to move on to our next segment, which we call Money Matters, led by James Theo Teague.
So before we actually get into the topic, I just wanted to talk about or recap on what we had just talked about mental health.
All right.
I find it kind of weird that we, as a society, have some stigma against mental health and the importance of it, and we definitely neglect it. And it's kind of weird to me because of like how the brain works. You would think that the brain running all of your decisions would decide to take care of itself, and kind of doesn't. I mean, it's the only organ of the body that named itself, if you think about it.
So, and I'm making sure I'm saying this right, that you're saying that our brain, as much as it does all the pieces that it controls, nerves, back, feelings, smell and all that kind of stuff, that the same way it does like with our immune system or something, that it should be able to kind of redirect.
Yeah, I mean, you think about like how we as the collective person operates, right? We tend to be more self-centered. We want to take care of ourselves before we take care of other things. And you would think that since your brain runs that, and your brain is like, take care of me first, that your brain would also be like, take care of me first, and not worry so much about, all the other things that we worry about. But clearly that's not how it works. And I just find that weird. That
What do you want our brain to do? Just to tell us go lay down and
Yes.
quit acting up, just go to sleep, man. You acted up.
your brain can tell you needs a break. But anyway, today's topic is about the USFL and it coming back in the spring of 2022. So let me pull up my notes here, because it was the USFL was a league. It started out as a spring league in 1983. It lasted for 3 seasons, and by all accounts, it was actually doing pretty well. It landed some big name folks. Partially, it was a double-edged sword. They were able to pay very high wages. They got guys like Reggie White to join, and Herschel Walker. But they didn't have a salary cap, so kind of ballooned. They couldn't sustain the payrolls, and that kind of led to the folding of the league. It had 12 teams, and it was interesting because it had a territorial draft, so you couldn't just draft anybody. It had to be kind of in a specific region, and they did that to attract fans into the game, because you would know. They were college athletes that were around in your area that would be playing for those same teams, and they thought it'd be more likely that fans would want to go see that. And then they shut down in 1986. They voted to move from a spring league to a fall league to compete with the NFL, not necessarily to overtake the NFL, but they were basically trying to get bought and merge, much like the AFL did in the NFL, I guess, 20 years earlier, something like that. And then they had an antitrust lawsuit against the NFL saying that they violated anti-monopoly laws. They won, and they won a total sum of $1. And then they shut down right after that. So now they're back. They are scheduled to play in 2022 in the spring, competing with the XFL, and it's backed by Fox. So Fox is going to be having the rights. They're going to be airing the games. They got big money in already. So questions about this are just, what are your general thoughts? How do we feel about spring leagues? And do we ever think spring leagues are going to catch on?
Oh my gosh, I've been sitting here waiting just to say. So why are we doing this again, man? So I'm just gonna first. I'm gonna ask: are they coming back in the same capacity? Meaning the way that they tried to do it before? Hey, we're just gonna do 10, 12. Have they really gotten that far yet? Do they even have a plan on what they want to do? Is it going to be played between February and?
I think they probably have a plan, or at least a rough plan, but I don't have the details. I don't know.
Does it say who's like backing it? Who's giving this money to coaches or players and?
Oh, like the actual person?
Yeah.
No, all I know is that Fox is a big backer. The Fox network is where the majority of the money is coming from.
And so I'm asking a lot of these questions before I get into an opinion, I guess, because have some of these other leagues that have come since then been supported by a certain TV station that gave money? XFL, what was the other league that just folded here not too long ago?
The AAFL.
Yeah, AAFL. Have any of these other leagues that have been around, had this type of support? Because I know it always ends up being something financial that kills them. And even if you got a TV station or conglomerate or something supported, are they still gonna, what are they gonna do about coaches? Are they gonna try to find? These are the questions, man. They're gonna try to find celebrity coaches again, where you got to pay them, whatever it is, 80,000, 100,000. Across the whole staff. Then you're going to play the players and who they. I mean, it just starts to run into so much, and I'm really kind of, as much as I like to see something being played in the spring for football, it just seems like it never works. We always get hyped. We like the rules. We like all the stuff, the uniforms or whatever catchy that they come out with, and then we all get heartbroken. And I'm kind of tired of getting heartbroken by these spring leagues that are supposed to be so good,
So, I think I don't know what's going to happen. I thought the XFL, I did like the AAFL because I liked the way that they were keeping the flow of the game. There wasn't too many commercial breaks. I could sit down and watch what was a complete football game in 2.5-ish hours. I realized that as much as I thought that kickoffs were necessary, they're completely not. I did not miss it. I did not notice it. All I thought was that, I missed a commercial break. I went to the bathroom. I came back, and they're starting on 25. Whatever. Didn't care. I thought the XFL did a great job with what they were doing. I liked the transparency with the refs. That was cool to hear them kind of like debate on whether or not something happened or not. You hear the replay official talking back and forth. You got a little bit of the calls from the press box, which I don't even know how they really got away with that. But that was cool to hear, like plays being called and things like that.
And then what happened?
Well, they did run out of money, but I think they could have got through that. I think COVID also happened, and then that any league that was going to start then and then have COVID happen was doomed to fail.
So, go on the other side then. How are you going to get players and coaches? Because listen, I've been approached by some of these things some of the times, and they always sound really good. Hey, we got some backers, and we got this. You can go coach there. You can jumpstart your. It might take you one as a player into the league, or two as a coach to bounce you into the NFL or something. And I mean, it's just too often, man, that it just seems like, not just fans, but the people in there are now getting. What does that phone call even look like? Or when you show up at the tent trailer, I don't know where they put these people at, and they say, you know what, we got to shut it down. Do they hear about it first on television? Do they call them and say?
I don't know, but so there's a couple of things. I think that, one, did you know that there is a league called the Spring League? Were you aware of this?
Is that like English football,
no,
European football?
No, they're playing in the States right now. They're on Fox. So on FS1, they've been around for 6 years, and they've been playing in the spring for 6 years. Yeah, nobody watches it, but so they've been around for 6 years, and they've seemed to be doing just fine.
Well, that's good.
which kind of made me start thinking is like, how have they been around for 6 years and nobody watches it, but they're still able to do it? And then I realized, I think these leagues are set up to fail basically from the beginning, because I have a theory that nobody, really, most football fans, they don't actually watch football because they like really like football. They watch it because they recognize the people, or they like the brand, which is why college football is so popular. You got new kids coming in all the time, most of which nobody has ever heard of, but you're invested in that team for whatever reason. You went there, the brand has been indoctrinated in you since you were a child and whatnot. And then you start watching the NFL because it's like, oh, I remember that guy at my school, and I remember this guy, and I know this guy, and now it's a star-studded event. And the spring leagues can't particularly do that.
Yeah, because you're almost still having to compete with the National Football League for those guys, right? I think, and I would add into that too when you were going down to the part of what attracts people. I was even going to go on the other side of it's the violence, the collisions, the noise, the trash talking or whatever, the rivalries, and that's kind of hard to develop right out the chute. You know, that you just got some and I don't know. I think I always have not been fair and said these players that are involved are trying to make it to what I want to watch anyway on Sundays. You know, so it's kind of like a farm league, but it never really is.
No, because the farm leagues is college.
Yes.
So, what spring leagues need to do, they need to choose their cities wisely. I thought that when the AAF put a team in Birmingham, that was a fantastic idea.
You saying don't be around the NFL team?
No. Go to the places that want teams that don't have teams. San Antonio, St. Louis. The Battlehawks were... Missouri was all in on the Battlehawks. They could care less. They were burned by the Rams. They don't care about the Rams. And I know a lot of Rams fans that refuse to watch the NFL now. And when the Battlehawks were there, like that was a stronghold. And they were good. You know, if you can put a good team in a place that wants a team.
So anywhere north where it's cold. They'll support.
I feel like that's the only reason Green Bay's still around, right? Because they were good. If Green Bay was terrible, they would have moved a long time ago, like everybody else that came down south. But I mean, if you can put teams in places like that, maybe you beat the NFL and go ahead and just stick a team in Mexico City. They got millions of people. All they want is a football team.
That would be true. That would be true, especially if you put, either the star or the Raiders logo on the side, you'd be good. Okay, well that's pretty good. So I guess I want to end this segment with, after it gets started, do you feel comfortable enough to make a prediction on how long this league lasts before it's bought out or no longer in existence?
I'll give them 2 seasons.
Oh,
because either it'll fold, or if the XFL actually does pretty well, I think they might just go ahead and just merge with the XFL and make it a bigger thing, and it'll be the XFL with 8 extra teams or whatnot, and they'll just have a spring monopoly, and maybe they'll get some more guys like that safety from the Battlehawks. I meant to look up his name, but the guy that got kicked off of West Virginia because he was like, I'm here to play football, not play school. And he was balling at the Battlehawks, and then he ended up getting picked up as a free agent for somebody else. And didn't have to wait 3 years out of high school. So it was a win-win for him, I guess.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. I will definitely check it out when it comes in to see what it is, and we'll have to.
I just wish the Dallas Renegades were better. But I always said if the Dallas Renegades were better, Jerry Jones would have put a stop to the XFL.
Well, that was going to be my next statement is if they become too big and conglomerate, the NFL is too powerful, those owners are too powerful, and there's a way to sabotage these dudes probably. Some kind of way. Hate to hear that, but there's too much Good Morning Football on NFL Network right now, and we can't be talking about other stuff because that would totally crush that. But one thing that we can talk about right now is 3R Sports Graphics. 3R Sports Graphics represents a lot of top schools, which I coach in. Man, they got a lot of powerhouses and different things, and you guys should check them out because 3R Sports Graphics was founded in 2018 by Tyler Sanders. He provides affordable graphic content tailored for your individual school to promote the high school or college. You get a deal with a designer one-on-one from the beginning to the end of the project. 3R Sports Graphics, they're here to help you with social media graphics. I personally use them. I love it. I love what they do. So visit their website, 3rsportsgraphics.com. Email Tyler at tsanders2405@gmail.com or follow them on Twitter at 3rsports1. That's 3R Sports, the number 1. All right, so now we're going to move on to the final play at this moment. And I want to talk about IMG. And did they actually create the high school portal or not? Now I'm playing on those words and whatnot. And I did a little bit of reading because, I've been personally being hit with some people transferring and different things and trying to get the mindset of all of this stuff and how it actually started and was created. And so there is some conversation, JT, about once IMG, okay, so IMG is I don't know what you call them. I don't even know how you categorize them. They're a school, but not really a school. They're an academy. They're an academy in Bradenton, Florida, where they bring in elite athletes, not just football, but everywhere else, almost like an Olympic facility. So they start plucking off kids, from around the country. They were into Texas for a little while until they were kind of banned, essentially, from playing a bunch of UIL schools because at that point, then they were taking kids from Texas schools to bring to Florida, offering them scholarships or the opportunity to come down there and play. And they were doing it in Virginia and California, and they were already doing it in Florida. So, it kind of became this this big issue of that was some thinking that was the trend that started, okay, high school kids need to move to get an opportunity to try to get a scholarship, right, or a better opportunity. So now it's kind of trickled into, I know it's pretty big out in California and Florida, not just to IMG now, but from school to school, even here in Texas. So you got any thoughts, JT, about how this might have actually even begun to happen? Was it before IMG and we just didn't really know and they kind of became a big catalyst? Or
Yeah, I think I think it was always happening. It just was it was in a sense where it wasn't such on a big scale, right? Where you had, because there are schools that travel, not named IMG, that seem like they're always good all the time, and they're not very big schools, and you're kind of like, how in the world is Bishop Gorman always running through people? And there's some Catholic school off in, I don't even remember what state they're in.
Yep.
So I think that has a lot to do, or I think that was the grassroots movement of that. Cause I even think of when I was in Iowa, you've got, there's 2 schools in Iowa that are good. It's, Dowling Catholic and Valley High School, and the rest of them, who cares? If you don't go to Dowling or you don't go to Valley, those schools are just not very good. And, we have cities and things that shut down when big schools play each other. And it's like the whole state of Iowa shuts down when Dowling and Valley are playing. They would come and they'd play at Drake, and Drake would shut down because Dowling and Valley are playing. So I think
Oh, he pulled that up
Look
real
at you,
quick, didn't he?
Ben, my man, Ben. I see you, baby. I gotta ask Ben a question too. I know he's not a football guy, so I want to get back to this, but I need to ask Ben because he's a hockey guy, right?
That's right.
But what do you think about the USFL? Are they gonna make it or they're not? What do you think?
I think that it's going to be another case where if they don't get good funding from either just various ads within the networks, I think they're going to go. That or they'll get bought up.
Okay, all right. So anyway, our tremendous producer Ben just all surprised us. For those of y'all that can't see the screen, man, he's on it, man.
Yeah,
he's good.
man.
He's good.
That was surprising.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, so I think, I mean, you look at Allen, you don't necessarily think about people transferring into Allen, but it happens, and people transfer out of Allen.
They just had the big 3 quarterbacks coming there, whatever it was, from California and wherever else.
Yeah, I mean that's I think that's been happening for a long time. It just so happens that it doesn't. We know about it because Allen is the big school in our area, but people in Florida don't because Allen doesn't go to Florida and whoop up on teams and then leave.
Yeah.
So, all that to say is I think that the grassroots has always been there locally. And it just got put on a higher scale when teams like IMG or, even Prestonwood sometimes, where it's like, look, nobody in our area wants to play us anymore, so we got to go play somewhere else. And we're going to go play the top school in name a state. We're going to go beat them up. And then the kids and the parents that thought that, oh, we're the top school, we're the biggest and baddest, and they got beat up by they got like blown out by some other team somewhere else, is like, oh, that's what it's like other places? I didn't know that this was an option. Seems like we can go do this now because, you got those charter schools and they don't have zoning. It's not, all districts aren't as strict as LISD, where it's like if anytime you transfer, you can't.
So like Duncanville is what you're trying to say.
Yes, like Duncanville.
Else. Right. There probably has to be a whole lot more conversation about this, because when you go state to state and you're talking about this, a lot of private schools play within the public school deals. Texas, not so much, right? I think there's only 2 private schools that play in the UIL, Houston Strake, Jesuit, and Jesuit here in Dallas. I don't think there's any more. And then you got another 250 private schools that play in their own league. So, and we can move around and transfer a whole lot easier than a lot of kids. But do you think it matters by state on how they structure with these, or is it becoming so lax now with new rules, state laws, having it's not called open enrollment, but freedom of choice, to go to schools? Do you think it's worse in Texas just because of our system that you can actually go from a public to a private?
I do.
Easily, or from a private back to public?
I do. When you have, because I liken it to like, how easy is it for me to, if I was a kid, to transfer from one school in Texas to another school in not Texas? You're not really going to bat an eye because, like, well, he's off in some other state. And the fact that Texas has a separation of private schools and public schools, that might as well be another state. It's like, you're not even in our league anymore. Yeah. It's, and you see the same thing with the NCAA, well, up until recently, where it's like, if you transfer out of the conference, nobody really cares. But if you transfer up the street, like the kid, Brandon Turner's just transferred from Alabama to Georgia, and Henry Toto from Tennessee to Alabama, and you're like, wait a minute, I don't like this because now it's closer to home, and I think Texas has, in a sense, exacerbated that. And I can point fingers on who I think is, I think the University of Texas is kind of the real problem, because they were so afraid of private schools versus, being in the UIL and whatnot. Like, if I don't see this particularly being as much of an issue in other states. I mean, even in California, you know, some of the best schools in California, Mater Dei and St. John Bosco, are not public schools.
Nope. But they keep some dudes. They're getting them from somewhere.
Well, LA is a pretty big place to,
okay.
to be pulling talent. But
All right.
you know,
Sure.
when you got
Money.
when you got money and you have schools that are already that big that don't have a fence in which they can pull things around, it's easier to just, pull kids. I mean, it's Allen is never going to break up into two high schools for that very reason. And that why Prosper and Salina are all upset, because they just
add another school.
yeah. Like, why are there no good Frisco schools? Because there's 11 of them.
There's too many of them. You
And
can't.
you break them all up, and then you wonder why. Like, then Frisco wonders why. Like, oh, the kids want to leave Frisco because all of the teams across all of the sports suck. I was like, well, because you took all the good kids and you spread them out and said, let's try to make it even.
But see, and I think that's leads into an issue too there, because then people may as they're leaving, some may find it as an opportunity that I can go play there, you know, if they were able to move. And so when you have districts like Garland where you can move around Garland, you know, I'm just wondering if this is going to become such a mess with that other cities.
Well, yeah, I mean, Garland is definitely going to have a unique problem where I don't know how long it's going to take, but one Garland school is going to be good,
They're going to figure it out. Right?
and the other ones are not going to be good. And I also think that's part of the whole, like, you coupled school and sports. Like,
So is this good? Last piece, because we only got a couple minutes left. Is the transfer portal, the high school transfer portal, good for high school sports?
I think it depends on who you ask. It's good for you know, it's good for the kid that hates where he's at and he's only there because that's where his
Zoning is?
his zoning. He lives 3 houses too far to the left, and they want something else, or maybe it's actually just not a very good school at all.
No, so I agree with that. I do. I think, you know, anytime you can put your kid in a position to be successful, you know, you got to do what you got to do as a family, right? But will there ever be a real conversation about should it just be, you know, more like a NCAA kind of rule, you know, where, hey, you get a transfer once or something, you know, that, hey, we know it's going to happen. You're gonna
Yeah, I
people
mean,
are
there
figuring it out. They're
should be,
moving.
I guess, I mean, if that's what they want to do, there should be conversation on it. Because like I said, with LISD, they basically tell you, well, it's the other way. You can transfer out, and they're like, okay, whatever. But if you transfer, it's very hard to transfer into a school, into LISD, and be immediately eligible
And
that
play.
season.
Yeah. Well, I
But
don't know.
it varies by school district. So
There's a big debate. I'd like to really see if there's some numbers out there. I saw that, you know, some numbers back in 2018. It's a really good article. You probably want to read if you just Google search it. But it talked about in 2018 there were almost like 20,000 kids who transferred, you know, high schools across. I think it was across the U.S., not just in California.
across the
Others
U.S.,
about
I mean,
it could
that
have been.
sounds like a very high number.
It could have been California, actually. I think because they were saying that, hey, that, you know, it wasn't even high even for California with the number of how big their
Yeah, because I was going to
things
say
are. It's like
20,000
2% of the kids. Like, hey, it's only 2% of the kids, but you know, people are going everywhere.
And I bet does it say anything about like where those kids are? Because I'd bet those 20,000 kids probably are. It's like all in LA.
Yes, they're still going to those same schools that we're talking about. They're getting the most in. But then, you know, you're seeing some that leave out. I'm sure that's part of it. They were transferring out because other people are moving in. But anyway, you know, it's I want to dive more into that. I think it's very interesting just as a high school coach. and seeing what's happening and people bettering themselves and having the opportunities to do that. I think it's just something we need to look at as leagues and try to figure out how to best handle that. So thank you guys for tuning in to this one, man. It's been really, really good. We won't be on next week. Next time we'll be on is June 22nd. June 22nd, we got Gus Frerotte, the quarterback. Y'all know him, all-star QB. He's going to come on and spend a little bit of time with us. I'm actually going to go on his show as well. So make sure you're paying attention to us on Twitter and Instagram because I'll be telling you about those, where I'll be for his show, but then he's going to come in and return the favor. Be here. Don't forget to visit our website, teagstake.com. You can also hit georgeteague.com, find your stuff, and let's see if he can hit a. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. I'm good with that. For y'all can't see, y'all need to see how bad JT throws. So next or 2 weeks from now, June 22nd, make sure you tune in so you can see what he does with that piece of paper.
It's a crosswind.
Yeah, we'll see y'all later, man. Peace out. Subscribe to our feed at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening now. Follow us on Facebook and YouTube at Teague's Take Podcast. Remember to hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed the stream. Stay engaged by following us on Instagram and Twitter at Teague's Take, where you can keep up to date with news postings and other live content.